At number 10 spot, we have the Chong-ek Genocidal Center. As the name suggests, this was a pure massacre and a horrible tragedy in Cambodia's long, rich history. In the area around this genocidal center, approximately 17,000 people lost their lives and were buried, many whom were bound and blindfolded. For obvious reasons, these were known as the execution fields of Chong-ek. This is all but a reminder of some of the atrocities committed by the Khmer Rouge regime, who were known for their forced labor camps and malnourished citizens. Now back to the Chong-ek Genocidal Center. This is where the regime would take their prisoners to be executed and now serves as a memorial for this mass grave. This center even features a Buddhist stupa filled with different human skulls retrieved from the field, ranging from the elderly to some babies. Now many feel uncomfortable walking these grounds and sense the presence of those who are suffering there. Many others claim to see the apparition of Pol Pot, who is the leader of this devastating regime. But regardless, knowledge is power, and hopefully this educates us to never go down this route again.
Number 9. Haunted House on National Road. According to some, this is the most haunted place in Cambodia. There are many stories that describe it as a very mysterious island where a lot of people have either passed away or disappeared without a trace. Now on National Road number 5, from Kampong Chang Province to Prasat Province in Cambodia, just 5 minutes driving from Steung Bribo Bridge, on the right hand side, there's a house that most people stop by to pay their respect to, a famous ghost house. There's a very large monument built because a family that didn't particularly want to live created a curse. The curse took residents in a pit they threw themselves in to take their lives. Eventually people who drove near it started to pass away. It was also said that the residents who lived nearby started to pass away around World War II. At the time it was a wooden house, but now it's concrete.
At number 8 spot, we have Boker Hill Station. Boker Hill Station once served as a French settlement town and a hideout for the Khmer Rouge regime. Remember that terrible communist party I mentioned earlier? Through its time, many lives were claimed due to the hard labor needed to build all this infrastructure. This town even saw a war with the invasion of Vietnam. This regime used this place as one of their last strongholds, so many lives were lost defending it. Now it lies completely abandoned with only the rundown buildings to show for it. Fortunately, the place opened up for tourism, but many people report feeling sadness walking along these blood-stained grounds. Many people visit the old hotel in the town and they claim to see the apparitions in the corner of the rooms, standing there just watching them. Didn't think it was scary yet? Imagine this place at night. Boom, terrifying.
Now at number 7, Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. In the 1970s, this former high school was converted into the notorious S-21 prison by the Khmer regime, where an estimated 20,000 prisoners were executed. Souls of the victims who were detained, starved, tortured, and executed are said to be roaming the S-21 hall. Many unusual incidences have been reported there, including the guards who hear moaning and chains rattling at night. Today, the school or prison has been transformed into a museum where the ghosts of the deceased are still said to haunt the halls. Of the 20,000 prisoners that experienced the horror of S-21, only approximately 6 to 12 are rumored to have survived the genocide. The museum employees even leave food out for the ghosts during their lunch breaks. They say that if they don't leave an offering, they can't enjoy their own lunches in peace due to loud noises and other ghostly activities.
At number 6 spot, we have the Independence Hotel. This hotel in Sanan Nookville, Cambodia is thought to be haunted by one of its former residents. The wealthy and the famous quickly filled the rooms of the hotel after its 1964 construction. After a few years of prosperity, the hotel closed its doors in the mid-1970s to become a base for the Khmer Rouge soldiers. We can't escape this regime, can we? Rumors claim that the hotel conducted mass killings while using the swimming pool to house prisoners. It was abandoned and allowed to deteriorate before being restored in 1982 and serving as a hangout for UNTAC troops in the early 1990s. It was then shut down in 1999 and had a significant renovation and reopened to visitors in 2007. Despite the reopening, the new paint couldn't mask the atrocities done within the hotel. Guests would report cold spots in the room, and others would report an infamous spirit of a young girl who took her own life in one of the rooms, or even the aggressive spirits of the 4 robbers who were reportedly shot down in the mid-90s at the hotel. Think you can do a day at this hotel? Cause I can't.
Halfway, number 5, Banana Ghost Tree. The story goes that a husband was sent abroad for business, and while away, the wife got sick and passed away. Her spirit became vengeful and started haunting the people of their village. When the husband returned, not knowing about his wife's passing, he quickly realized that the woman he found was not his wife, but her ghost when she unnaturally made her arm longer. He ran away from their house seeking help, but even after a proper burial, his deceased wife followed him to a Buddhist monk's house where he sought safety. As he was reciting prayers with closed eyes, his wife's ghost climbed one of the many banana trees near the monk's house, entered through a window, and immediately took the life of the man. A belief which many people still follow stems from this legend forbidding people from planting banana trees next to their other houses, as her ghost spirit could enter through the house by climbing in on a banana leaf. If there was already a banana tree growing close by, all of the banana tree's leaves touching or near the house would usually be cut off for safety.
At a number 4 spot, we have Kokor. Kokor is an island approximately 20 kilometers outside of the capital city of Cambodia. This place is a complete tropical paradise, but as they say, beauty is often deceiving. Turns out this island is nicknamed Murder Island, and they got this name because, you guessed it, the Khmer Rouge regime was here, and they established a prison where they would use it as an execution site. This prison was estimated to have claimed the lives of thousands of people due to physical abuse and malnourishment. This is why many residents of the island claim to see the ghosts of the former prisoners wearing their black shirts and crying out for help in the middle of the night. They even left a brutal display of the remains of those who lost their life on this island. Don't know about you, but I'm still hung up on the fact that it's called Murder Island. Shouldn't this be a no-brainer for all of you guys as well?
Now at number 3, Champa Pagoda. During the broadcasting of a horrific night, a local radio programmee served as a channel for Cambodian people who would call in and share their paranormal experiences. Noah Viseth, a government official residing in Stung Treng and a dedicated listener who tuned in on the show every Saturday and Sunday, said his life was almost taken by the ghosts while traveling along the road in front of Champa Pagoda in the Vey district. His story was this: it was 10 p.m. and I was on my way home from work. Suddenly, a bike ran into me. I avoided it and fell over, and then the bike just disappeared into thin air. This is not the first story of its kind to have been reported. Many claim that they have experienced similar incidences while traveling in the area, which is well known for being a place where hundreds of people passed from traffic accidents.
At number 2 spot, we have the Kampong Cham Ghost House. In 2005, the movie The Haunted House was filmed in this house. Before the shooting, all the actors prayed and made a super ceremony to pay respect to the spirit inside the house. According to rumors, a young couple moved to this newly built house. They dreamed that someone offered to buy a house for $3,000 in net gold. They immediately agreed, and the next morning, they woke up and they saw the gold was placed at the door of the house. But they did not move despite taking the gold. One day after waking up, they found themselves lying on the wilderness with their belongings. Since then, no one has dared to step into the house, and it supposedly doesn't have a speck of dust inside of it to this day.
Now coming in at number 1, Old Shingji Hospital. The now abandoned hospital was built in 1935 by the British colonial government as part of a military base camp in the area. It included 2 military buildings, blocks 24 and 37, that were part of the Kitchener Barracks, which housed the Royal Engineers of the British Army. However, the hospital's peak was short-lived, with the grounds being seized by Japanese troops in 1942 and used as a holding ground for prisoners of war. During the occupation, the hospital was said to have been used as a torture facility by the Japanese secret police, based on the fact that there were rooms with thick chains hanging from the walls and blood-stained floors. Before and after its closure in 1997, visitors and hospital guards claimed to have seen phantoms resembling nurses and soldiers roaming its corridors, as well as hearing unexplainable hellish shrieks. A movie was even filmed on the site, and the crew reported strange occurrences with unexplainable sounds, disembodied voices, and sightings of ghostly figures. Kicking off this countdown at number 10, Abandoned Chambers in Chucaloma. This abandoned chamber is located basically in the middle of nowhere, about 8 kilometers from the closest inhabited village called Chucaloma. Formerly a charming mansion filled with life, it was built in a big village called Ostashevo, which died out in the 20th century due to the rapid urbanization process the Soviet Union faced. The landlord of the mansion was a rich businessman from St. Petersburg who constructed it as a present for his second wife, who was an Ostashevo local. The chamber is built in pseudo-Russian style, an unusual mix of Slavic and Byzantine architecture. Nowadays, the mansion looks more like a horror house from Russian-style thrillers and is almost completely forgotten, except for the group of enthusiastic bloggers gathering money to revive it. The mansion is within walking distance from the village, but it would be wise to ask a local to give you directions. Now at number 9, Katachan Village. Officially known as a depopulated community, this Russian village actually looks like a ghost town rather than anything else. Originally, this place was established as a coal mining village, but the corporation shut doors due to numerous incidences there. As a result, the locals soon left the village and settled in other communities, without even packing all of their possessions. By the end of 2010, the village in Matagan Oblast was almost completely deserted. It virtually had no official residents. This place is rarely visited by travelers since there's not much to see around it anyway. Now, as this village is not just one building itself, there's multiple buildings in the village, but they are all very spooky looking, and the abandoned park in the middle of the village is even creepier than the rest. The coal mining in the area just became unprofitable. One mine was simply shut down in 1992, while the other had exploded in 1996 and ended up unfortunately taking the lives of 6 people. Back in the late 80s, more than 10,000 people lived in this village, and they had everything. I mean shops, restaurants, movie theaters, a house of culture, and so much more. However, in 2012, 2 people were spotted in the area, and it was reported it seemed like they had been living in this insanely creepy deserted village. Here at number 8, Brzezinski Mansion. This mansion is also located in St. Petersburg. Unnoticeable from the street, this charming abandoned mansion is located in the industrial district of Vasilivsky Island in St. Petersburg. It was built by Petersburger Nikolai Brzezinski, the rich owner of the local tannery. The mysterious story of the building claims that here the famous Dracula mirror is being kept in a secret hiding place between the walls. According to local legend, the mirror was brought here in the 20th century from the Venetian Palazzo, where the dust of Dracula was kept. Soon after the mirror appeared in the mansion, the granddaughter of the landlord suddenly passed away. After the revolution, the mirror was taken to the local Kirov Palace of Culture and then returned to the mansion. After 2 more passings of residents of the mansion, the decision was made to hide the mirror in a secret place inside the building. Coming in at number 7, Sanatorium Energy. The old sanatorium was a long abandoned place that wasn't used for decades until one day when the town decided to transform the building into something else. The former sanatorium would probably be torn down completely, but at least the grounds would be used for the construction of something better. What's interesting about this place is that it's located just outside of Moscow, nearby a few ponds that are major hotspots for fishers. So hopefully the new buildings will be able to cater to those specific visitors who may spend a night or 2 here while fishing nearby the lakes or ponds. Now at number 6, Northern Crown. This one is a place that gathers a lot of mystery and has had a lot of weird incidences. The hotel was an extraordinary and very luxurious place until 1988 when the Soviet Union compromised the property in order to overlook the Krubovki River. Unfortunately, due to the lack of money, the construction was postponed. And since then, the inner side is luxurious, but the outer side of the hotel is abandoned. The story says that the reason was the passing of a nun of St. Pete, who suddenly passed in an honor reception. While this place looks luxurious and beautiful, now that it's somewhat abandoned, it looks pretty scary. Halfway at number 5, the grain elevator. This grain elevator was built right on the fringe of the Ural city of Chelyabinsk. Once the construction of the railway was completed, Chelyabinsk automatically became a pretty significant trade station between eastern and western Russia. The result was a gigantic 8-story building that served as a symbol of the town. It practically resembled a giant skyscraper rising high from the ground. In only several years, the other districts of the city developed so much the grain elevator simply fell into abandonment. Now I know the building doesn't have any ghost stories behind it, but it definitely looks like it could be tied to something like a haunted asylum.
All this was the structure of the elevators where the grain been stored. And this is like the main building, the main office building was here.
Here at number 4, Dagdizel plant. This odd building is known as the Dagdizel plant in Dagestan. Initially, Dagdizel plant was used as a test center for the military department in Russia. According to the original plan, it had to be put in operation by 1939. However, the idea was actually short-lived since the military needs sort of changed over the years. Well, this Russian test center still resides in the Caspian Sea, but it's hardly ever used for anything anyway. On top of that, Dagdizel plant is located almost over 2 miles from the shore, so getting there isn't really easy whatsoever. Today, its only visitors are the birds that have made the land theirs. This weird looking thing in the middle of the water just screams horrifying just from a picture. Coming in at number 3, the unseen side of Leningrad. Saying that the scenery of this place isn't at all spooky would be the biggest lie ever. This insane site was built near the village of Seperny and is considered the largest decoration for a military movie. In fact, the entire town was built on an abandoned military base. The movie project engaged over hundreds of builders to set up the scene, and the whole process took between 4 to 6 months, and over $5 million to complete. It's not hard to see that the decoration is filled to the brim with bizarre details, including these children-looking statues that seem to be playing Ring Around the Rosie, which for starters has always been a creepy song and an odd game to play. I mean, the lyrics in the song are ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Now at number 2, Atomic Lighthouse. The Atomic Lighthouse, constructed by the Russian architect Murray Shinobu, was built on the Sakhalin Island in the mid-90s. It was in fact a very complicated building, a technical one that had to be a unique creation. Kapanava's lighthouse used a diesel generator to get going, although it also had some backup batteries. In the late 90s, the Atomic Lighthouse was retrofitted with more power as a way to save more money. However, somehow it eventually became abandoned anyway. So the building now sits lonesome by the sea, hopelessly waiting for a new potential reconstruction. But with the clouds and all the decay the building has already experienced, I'm not sure anyone would want to even go near that thing, let alone build something else in its place.
So this is floor number 3. This looks like it was probably the living quarters. People lived here, like season round. There had to be someone here at all times manning the lighthouse itself. Looks like the walls have been painted blue. The reason why I think this is also living quarters is it's the only level that we've seen with the space heater on it. Got a shelf and then a closet right there.
Taking our number 1 spot, Maternity Hospital. This building was constructed at the end of the 18th century on the territory of the hospital for participants in the Patriotic War of 1812 against the French army of Napoleon, and initially was a general district hospital. It became a maternity hospital in the second half of the 20th century and was closed for reconstruction in 2009. The plan of this 2-story building resembles the Russian letter with a basement and attic. The ceilings are more than 5 meters high, and in spite of the fact that the building is totally abandoned, it still has central heating and is rather clean. Bloggers and people passionate about abandoned sites visit it on a fairly regular basis. The hospital is situated in the region of Vladimir, 186 kilometers to the east of Moscow. As maternity hospitals are usually good places to welcome new children into the world, this place is terrifying and no place for children now.
To start our list right, at number 10, we have the Queen of Spades. Basically the Russian version of Bloody Mary. This supernatural being is said to grant wishes to anyone who summons her, but at a price, of course. As the Joker once said, if you're good at something, never do it for free. To summon her, similar to Bloody Mary, you need to go into a dark room with a mirror and light a candle in front of it. Once you have that set up, you need to place a Queen of Hearts playing card right against the mirror. Then, taking lipstick, you need to draw a door with some stairs on the mirror. Now in front of the mirror, you need to clear your mind and close your eyes and say, Queen of Spades, come, 3 times. While you're saying her name, visualize the Queen of Spades opening the door and walking the stairs from the lipstick drawing. This part is where many report hearing evil laughter just before they encounter the Queen of Spades. Once she appears to you, you need to hold your candle and say your wish out loud. Once you're done, blow out your candle. If not, her spirit may come out of the mirror and stay in our world. Coming in at number 9, we have the Black Curtains. This Russian story started off as a simple request from a mother to her daughter, asking her to go to the store to purchase some curtains for the home. She urged the daughter to not buy any black curtains under any circumstances. However, when the girl got to the shop, she saw that there are only black curtains. So despite her mother's wishes, she decided to get them rather than go home empty-handed. When she arrived home, her mom was upset. But since they had no curtains, she put them up anyway. And this is where things get worse. During that night, the girl's father was strangled, and the night after, the same would happen to her mother and her brother. The traumatized girl rushed to the police, and it was decided that they would set up cameras and microphones all over the home to investigate the murders. They ordered the girl to go to bed as normal, but as time went by, the black curtain appeared to stretch and move, reaching for the girl in her bed. The police immediately opened fire and the curtain began to bleed out and let out a demonic screech as it fell to the ground. Stealing our number 8 spot, we have the Old Lady of Ostankino. This is a 5-century-old story of a lady living in the district of Ostankino, Moscow. The strange thing is that this lady only appears to Russian leaders, not other citizens. It is said that she appears to Russian leaders to warn them of upcoming dangers such as attacks, sicknesses, plagues, you name it. In return, this old lady only asked them to never farm on the land that she appeared on, in Ostankino. Despite getting useful advice, a powerful ruler of Ostankino disobeyed these orders and ordered men to start digging in the land. The lady was angry and summoned all the spirits of the land, and it was said that they possessed the residents of the city and led them all to their dooms. But at number 7, we have Anatoly Moskvin, the corpse collector. This is definitely a case where life is stranger than fiction. Legend has it that a mysterious person roams Russia, waiting for people to kidnap. He then kills them, preserves them, then puts their mummified bodies on display. It's a horror story fit for nightmares. This mysterious person was later found and arrested, going by the name of Anatoly Moskvin. He was reported to have killed 29 women, would mummify them, and would turn them into large dolls. His parents even thought they were large regular dolls. Anatoly was no stranger to the cemetery and had visited with his friends on multiple occasions. Here is where they said he discovered his sinister hobby. He even claimed that he was empathetic to the corpses as his sole purpose was to bring them back alive. Securing our number 6 spot, we have the Domovoi. The Domovoi is a house spirit in Slavic folklore. It is a masculine, typically small, bearded, and sometimes covered in hair all over. According to some traditions, the Domovoi takes on the appearance of current or former owners of the house, but has a gray beard, sometimes with tails or little horns. It is the protector of the house, and every home is said to have its own Domovoi. The Domovoi protected not only the human inhabitants of the house, but their herds and household animals as well. In some areas, Slavs believed that prosperity and well-being could not exist in a new home until the head of the family died and became its guardian spirit. Right in the hump of our list, we have the infamous Baba Yaga. This is a Slavic folklore that is commonly told around Russia. The Baba Yaga is a supernatural entity or witch that takes the form of an elderly lady. She is said to be the refugee of the dead, meaning this is the form she had taken after coming back from the afterlife. Appearing as weak and fragile, this would be a good way for the Baba Yaga to disguise what her true sinister intentions were. She is described as having bright red eyes and sharp metal or stone teeth. Her house is reported by witnesses to be a dark house deep in the woods that is standing on 2 chicken legs. Her house is said to be moved around by Baba Yaga's power to travel to different locations to find more victims. When people encounter the Baba Yaga, she is said to be helpful on some occasions, but most of the time, she would be dangerous and bloodthirsty. For example, in one story, she would do something heroic like locating a missing bride, but in another story, she is a child-eating monster who can't stop. A famous disaster takes our number 4 spot, the Chernobyl Blackbird. Just a few days before the infamous Chernobyl nuclear plant disaster, many workers at the plant reported seeing a large, dark, and mutated man with gigantic wings. This humanoid creature was given the name Black Bird of Chernobyl, and despite the fact it had no head, it had piercing red eyes that would send chills to the spines of anyone caught looking. Before the nuclear disaster, workers claimed to have been plagued by terrifying dreams and many instances of bad luck. Fast forward to the day of the disaster, and now workers have reported seeing a large black bird-like creature with a 40-foot wingspan flying through the smoke of Chernobyl. Many people believe these creatures to be a bad omen, since they are shown around history to appear before tragic events. You should definitely know this one, but at number 3 we have the Russian sleep experiment. This experiment was conducted in the 1940s in a top-secret Soviet facility. The Soviets used 5 Gulag prisoners to test what no sleep did to their brains and body in 30 days. They promised freedom when, or rather, if they survived. They would use air stimulants to keep them awake for all of the days. In the course of 5 days, the situation went out of control. The subjects blocked observation and went all kinds of crazy with constant screaming and moaning. Then, on the 9th day, a prisoner was screaming so loud that he completely tore his vocal cords right off. Then, on day 14, they tried to evoke a reaction by telling the prisoners they would open the chamber, but they would get a voice back saying, "We don't want to be freed." Then on day 15, after another day of silence, they decided to open the chamber, where they saw the unspeakable. When they opened it, they immediately noticed one of the prisoners was dead due to mutilation. As the soldiers were taking out the other prisoners out, they noticed chunks of human meat all over the room. The other 4 had muscles and skin torn off from their bodies, which all seemed to be self-inflicted. Their abdominal organs had also been removed. As soldiers were trying to get them out, they began begging to stay inside the chamber with the gas on. But due to this traumatizing sight, the witnessing soldiers would follow a similar fate, with many dying and others reported ripping off their own reproductive organs. Beethoven would be shocked at our number 2 spot, but we have the red piano. This story begins when these parents bought a red piano for their daughter, who had all kinds of desire to finally play on one. Once she had started playing, she couldn't stop. Just like a young Beethoven, after hours of playing, her fingers would begin to hurt. Her parents relieved her by telling her that it was normal and that's just part of the learning process. When she went back to play the piano a few days later, she found that the piano was broken. The parents asked the lady to fix it, but oddly, she asked everyone to exit the room to ensure that there were no distractions. After it was fixed, the girl played once again, but would fall ill after a while of playing on it. Then, the piano broke again, with the pair having to call the same lady to fix. Due to the curiosity of how she fixed it, the parents decided to peep through the keyhole of the room to see what she was doing. The lady was found opening the piano, pulling out a jar of blood and drinking it. When the police inspected the piano, it was discovered that the piano had tiny needles on the keys, so every time the daughter played, she was really getting drained of her own blood. Taking our number 1 spot of our list, we have the Chapayoskos. Once there was a couple, Elena and Alexei, who worked at a chemical plant. Their love for each other was very strong. However, one day before their wedding, an accident occurred. Alexei was at the chemical plant when a chemical fire bursted out of nowhere, eventually making the whole plant explode. Unfortunately for her, it was too late to escape, and he passed away in the fire along with one other co-worker. Upon hearing the devastating news, Elena, with no intentions to live anymore, threw herself in front of a train. Eyewitnesses said that she wore a white gown before jumping on the track, which was the same outfit that her grandmother gave her for the wedding. She was later buried in the municipal cemetery, and now people who decide to visit their loved ones at the cemetery report seeing Elena in her white gown strolling through the grounds. Apparently, her ghost is still looking for her loved one Alexei.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, Isa Grand Shrine. Japan is globally popular for its shrine culture and has approximately 80,000 shrines. The most important among all of them is Isa Grand Shrine. It is one of the most expensive temples in Japan due to its architectural magnificence since. To maintain the Shinto traditions dating back to the 8th century, this temple is rebuilt every 20 years, and that comes with $1 million price tag. However, you'd think spending that much money on something, you'd want people to see it and enjoy it, but unless you are a member of the royal family, you're forbidden to enter the hallowed halls of this ancient Japanese representation. Number 9. The forest. The Okigahara Forest, also known as the Sea of Trees, sits right along the edge of Mount Fuji, roughly a 2-hour drive west of Tokyo. At the entrance of the forest, you're greeted by a sign that reminds visitors that life is a precious gift from their parents. Okigahara's dark reputation has been around for decades. Legend has it that in the olden times when food was in short supply and the situation grew desperate, a family might take a dependent elderly relative, typically a woman, to a remote location and leave her to pass away. At first, the ghost visitors had claimed they saw in Okigahara were presumed to be the vengeful spirits of the old who had been abandoned to starvation, and the mercy of the elements. But that all began to change in the 1960s. More than 100 people who are not from the area surrounding Okigahara took their own lives there between 2013 and 2015. Countrywide, people who took their own lives there totaled roughly 24,000. These numbers do not include attempts people made. It is not recommended that you visit this place, because even if you're just going to see it and enjoy the scenery, you may get sucked in and you may take your own life yourself. Number 8. Inunaki Tunnel. The old Inunaki Tunnel is a spot of a horrific incident deep within the mountains of Fukuoka. In December of 1988, the charred remains of a man were found within this mountain tunnel. The perpetrators of this gruesome act are reported to be a group of teenage boys. The area also has a history that goes back over 1,000 years as a training grounds for Budapest practitioners, who claimed the area to be a spiritual hotspot of lost souls. These claims were later backed up by a modern spiritualist who visited the mountain area in the aim of recording a television special, but promptly refused to go further due to the foreboding spiritual atmosphere. The tunnel itself has been sealed off with concrete blocks, forbidding entry, but an opening in the top of the tunnel still allows entry for anyone foolish enough to climb over. The tunnel is no longer in use and far off the beaten path, meaning no assistance would be able to reach you in an emergency situation, so it is highly discouraged that you try visiting. Number 7. Takauka Unuma. This is certainly not a place to be visited now, but not for the reason you might expect. The story begins with Japan's rising bubble economy in the 1970s, in a rural northern part of Fukushima Prefecture, but the tale ended prematurely in 1986 and failed dreams never to be truly realized. Allegedly, after a few passings by people falling from the roller coasters, the park was shut down and multiple attempts to reopen the park all failed. Rather than demolish this area, it was just left to rust and fade out of the public consciousness. The decaying and dangerous structures were like a beacon calling out urban explorers who seemed to find the location popular. However, since 2018, the area has been mostly outfitted with solar panels, and all remains of the park attractions have disappeared. The legend still lives on as pictures and stories about the park continue to surface on the internet from time to time. But that is the first and last stop for anyone looking to test their courage in the park these days. Now at number 6, Iwo Jima Island. One of the Bonin Islands in the Pacific Ocean far south of the Japanese mainland, this island has forever been ingrained in the cultural consciousness of a historical battlefield in World War II. However, it is also home to Mount Suribachi, a 161-meter high volcano that is listed as the most dangerous active volcano in the world, according to the University of Manchester. It is said that there is a chance of this volcano erupting sometime in the next 100 years, which would in turn lead to 25-meter-high tsunami waves hitting the coast of both China and Japan, leading to a potential death toll in the millions. The ghost stories of it related to the 40-day battle waged on the island, in which many thousands of soldiers on both the US and Japanese side lost their lives. It currently holds a base for the Japanese self-defense forces, and those stationed on the island have reportedly encountered the spirits of the soldiers who lost their lives there many years ago. Whether you would like to or not, it is nearly impossible to visit the island, as it is restricted to military personnel only. Halfway at number 5, tattoos. Tattoos in Japan are not often accepted. Yes, as they are legal, you are technically allowed to have them, but if you go into some places, you will be frowned upon or possibly even kicked out if your tattoos are showing. In 1872, tattoos of all kind were prohibited to help give an appearance of civilization and sophistication throughout the country. This resulted in an increase in arrests and tattoo artists moving their shops underground. It wasn't until 1948 that tattooing became legal again. However, the stigma around the art has remained. In 2015, a Japanese tattoo artist was arrested for violating the Medical Practitioners Act. Police visited his tattoo parlor in relation to a criminal case against a pharmacy where the person was listed as a client. Becoming a medical doctor costs a lot of time and money, said the person. Locals and tourists with tattoos showing are in fact banned from from entering places like bathing houses, beaches, gyms, hot springs, and pools. So safe to say, cover your tattoos in Japan, or you can say goodbye to a fun beach day and working out. Number 4, Nakagasuku Hotel. The ruins of this hotel is among the favorite terrifying attractions in Japan. The hotel was proposed as a luxury resort and just a little away from the castle of the same name. The hotel construction was opposed by a monk who said it would disturb the holy site and graves in the area. But capitalist greed took over and the owner started building it. After several mishaps and workers' deaths, the construction was later stopped. In a bid to restart it, the owner promised to stay overnight at the hotel to prove it was safe, but instead he returned talking crazy in the morning and disappeared off the face of the earth. Even today, people can see lights and feel cold presence in the empty corridors of the hotel. Now at number 3, Mount Osari. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites. Many people are denied entry into this place, and it's for a good reason, because it's claimed by many people to be the entrances of hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up the scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is a smell of ghosts and devils, supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to the Buddhist monks, they say this place resembles the descriptions of hell and also paradise, so this is why they believe this is the spirit hub. Around the area, there are these little Jizo statues, which are used to guide people who were lost, especially for children to take and keep them for safety. Parents who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to easily go through the afterlife. Except many of the pebbles are left broken, and many people blamed it on evil demons in the area. They even have a festival at the shrine where blind women call a taco brings messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to be communicated with. Number 2, Hashima Island. Hashima Island in Japan is completely deserted now, but it was once the most densely populated regions on the planet, a hub for undersea coal mining. It was used in that capacity for almost a century, from 1887 until 1974. Around that time, petroleum started to take over and the coal capital of Japan was abandoned. The locals now know it as Gukujima or Battleship Island for its resemblance to such. Its spooky ruins are a trip for only the bravest to take. Now coming in at number 1, Gas Mask Island. South of Tokyo, you'll find Japan's Uzu Islands. On account of the active volcano and huge quantities of sulfur, it continues to emit between frequent eruptions. In the year 2000, according to Atlas Obscura, a series of eruptions caused the island to be evacuated. 5 years later, the levels of gas had disappeared enough for residents to be allowed back, but with a strict stipulation. They had to carry gas masks at all times, ready to be worn at a moment's notice. And they still do, as does everybody that dares to visit. So technically, you can visit this place if you want, but you have to be wearing a gas mask to enter, and it is not recommended.
At a number 10 spot, we have the Kifune Shrine. This place is very well known as a beautiful sightseeing spot in Kyoto, Japan, but for many locals, the dark history makes them have a different perspective of the place. Kifune Shrine is known as the birthplace of a terrifying ritual known as the Ishunokoku Mari, which refers to placing a curse on someone by placing a nail through a straw effigy, which is sort of like a voodoo doll. Then you nail it onto a tree around the hours of 1 to 3 a.m. We did a 3 a.m. video, so you already know how cursed that time is. If anyone is caught watching this ritual, the person conducting the ritual must eliminate that person, or else the curse will reflect back onto them. The performer usually wears a white kimono, sandals, and places 3 burning candles on top of their head. If you visit the shrine to this day, you will find many trees with holes on it, presumably from the nails of those attempting this scary ritual. At our number 9 spot, we have the Awashima Shrine. There is no doubt Japan is a very beautiful place, meaning that most of the shrines I mentioned on this list are very visitable. So I had to mention Awashima Shrine to change your mind on that. This shrine contains over 20,000 dolls who are believed to be possessed from its past owners. The dolls will be left at the shrine as an offering from women to pray for fertility and for safe birth. Come on, look at this place. Tell me you would go here willingly. According to legend, Empress Zingu was journeying home from a war overseas. As she was on her way back home, a huge storm took over the seas and broke the boat partially. This caused the Empress to pray to the gods, and apparently they brought her back safely to Tomagashina. Here she would build the Awashima Shrine to thank the gods for their service. People believe that these dolls over time would develop souls, so the reason why many donate it is to get rid of the curse trapped inside of these dolls that caused many of the problems and issues within their own life. At number 8 spot, we have the Dashogun Shrine. This shrine was originally built by Emperor Kanmu in 794. It was originally built to break the evil coming from all sorts of directions, whether this be from physical enemies or spiritual beings. This became a place where people would go to pray for protection. Specifically, many would call for the god of the stars, Dashogun. Enshrined at the place are many Japanese figures fighting a beast named the Nu. A Nu is a Japanese yokai described as having the head of a monkey, the body of a raccoon dog, legs of a tiger, and a snake for a tail. Pretty terrifying, right? Because these creatures can also transform into a black cloud and fly all over the place. Back in the early years of its construction, it said that the current emperor sent out these powerful warriors to kill it and make the place peaceful at last. Except many believe the Nu is still out there near the shrine, with reports of seeing the creature in the forest surrounding the area. At our number 7 spot with the Menenji Temple. Menenji Temple is located in Iwamizawa, Japan, and it was originally built in dedication to the Jodo sect of Buddhism. Despite its spiritual beginnings, the temple is now known for the cursed doll that lives within it. The story starts in 1918 Japan. Older brother Eikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his 2-year-old sister Okiku. The doll had a black bob cut and a traditional kimono on it. His sister loved the doll so much that she would even name it after her own name. These two would become so attached together like no other. But in the following year, Okiku became gravely ill and ended up passing away. To commemorate her family put her favorite doll on her memorial shrine. Everything seemed fine until after a few days they would begin to notice something very strange. The doll's hair seemed to be actively growing, and every time it would be cut, it would continue to keep growing. Eventually her family would move away but chose to keep the doll in the same place, thinking that Okiku would have wanted that. Now it resides in the Menenji Temple, where it's said that monks will cut the doll's hair regularly as it keeps on growing. At number 6 spot, we have the Sogenji Shrine. The Sogenji Shrine, also known as a Kappadera, is a Zen Buddhist temple in Tokyo. It got its name from a Japanese mythological entity known as the Kappa. And no, I don't mean that trashy clothing brand. I'm talking about these guys. Kappas are these human-like creatures, small in stature, with webbed hands and feet. It has a turtle shell on its back, and a beak and a saucer on their head, always seem to be filled with water. These creatures would just be known for their troublemaking. They would play games with both animals and humans, and in some cases, the Kappa would impregnate women and drown people in the rivers where they resided. Apparently, when the place was prone to flooding, the people of the area asked for the Kappa for existence, and now many claim that the Kappas are still nearby, claiming the place as their own. There are several statues of the Kappa littered around the shrine, but who knows if one of them turns out to be real. At the hump of our list, we have the Zenkoji Temple. The Zenkoji Temple is a Buddhist temple located in the city of Nagano, Japan. The main temple of Zenkoshi has a dark room created for spiritual purposes and acts like a shrine in a way. This dark room follows a pitch black tunnel underneath the temple that monks had supposedly hid the quote key to paradise. In order to do this, you need to hone your 5 senses and have complete focus while trying to navigate yourself through this area. This area is supposed to represent the journey between death and rebirth. It's very simple to understand how this represents the pursuit of enlightenment, which is only possible once you let go of your physical limitations and your concerns. People think that if you find the key, they will be saved, while others believe that if you fail, you will have a series of bad luck and unfortunate mishappenings. Regardless if you succeed or not, this room is bound to have a terrifying experience regardless. At number 4 spot, we have Mount Osor. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites, and for good reason. It's claimed by many to be one of the entrances to hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up a scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is the smell of ghosts and demons, supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to Buddhist monks, they say that this place resembles the descriptions of hell and also paradise, so this is why many believe this is a spirit hub. Also around the area are these little Jizo statues, which were there to guide people who were lost, especially for children to take and keep them for safety. People who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to go easily through the afterlife. Except many of these pebbles are left broken, and many have placed the blame on evil demons in the area. There's also a festival at the shrine where blind women called Itaku bring messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to be communicated with. At number 3 spot, we have the Owa Nanari Tamaya Shrine. This shrine in Tokyo has one of the most famous ghost stories in all of Japan associated with it. The story goes that Owa was a very pure and faithful woman, married to a terrible man named Tamaya Lemen. This man killed her in order to marry a richer woman. While the accounts on how he killed her vary, this all include poisoning her with terrible consequences to her looks. Obviously, she wouldn't be keen on this whole new marriage thing, and she proceeded to ruin the marriage, making him kill his new wife and her family by making them look like her dead self, and finally killed him too. The shrine was built to represent Owa's angry spirit and it still rests south of the station in Tokyo. At our number 2 spot, we're the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it is a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as a Sokushin Butsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and they are the bodies of priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All the mummies we see here are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. Just something about a body that is fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy, right? The process for the mummification would actually be pretty intense. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diets to a bare minimum. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, they would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation, in order to reach enlightenment. At number 1 spot, we have the Taki Shrine. This shrine is consumed in moss but looks very beautiful, but the story behind it completely ruins it. This shrine was established in the Teryaku era of Japan, which was around 900 AD. Legend goes that a man was hunting for yokai and fighting against sorcery in the region. When he was roaming the area, it would slowly get consumed by a dark black cloud. Unable to move further, the man prayed to the gods and fired an arrow up into the clouds. When the arrow came back down, the cloud drifted away, and the spot where the arrow hit is a supposed location of the Taki Shrine. Every now and then, the mountain will be filled with fog and mist, which only adds to the amazing atmosphere of the nature in the area, but also has a little bit of creepiness in it. And it's also a time when most of the region's spirits seem to be resting. Many believe that many yokai are resting by the shrine, so it's best to visit this area when there's still light outside, because many people have gone missing when night hits.